There's a Britain most people think is gone. The village with the stone bridge, the pub that has not changed its name in 300 years. The streets where nothing feels modern. It has not disappeared, it is just harder to find. Scattered across the country there are still places where time did not move on in quite the way. This is a journey through 12 of them. Number 1. Castle Combe greets the day with the sound of an ancient key turning in a heavy oak door. A gesture repeated by generations unchanged since the days when the village's name still echoed the lost castle on the hill. The honey-colored cottages cluster around the market cross, their stonework glowing in the soft Wiltshire light. Parish records trace Castle Combe's story back to the Domesday Book, and not a single new house has risen in the village centre since the 1600s. This sense of unbroken time is no accident. Conservation bylaws, including a strict Article 4 direction, mean even a windowpane cannot be swapped without careful approval. The result is a streetscape that feels suspended, camera-ready for film crews who return again and again. Warhorse, Stardust and Dr. Dolittle all found their backdrop here, but the villagers never left. Each November the War Memorial becomes the heart of the community. As children lay wreaths beneath the Gothic screen. The parish clock is still wound by hand each Sunday. In Castle Combe the past is not a performance but a daily rhythm, preserved by law, habit and the quiet pride of those who call it home. In second place, Mousehole glows each winter with a ritual woven from both memory and hope. As December falls, the harbour becomes a constellation. With more than 7,000 bulbs strung from quay to cottage. Their light reflected in the restless Cornish tide. This tradition began in 1963 with a single string of lanterns, but its heart lies deeper, in the way the village remembers its own endurance. Every year on the 19th of December, the lights are deliberately extinguished for 1 hour and the harbour falls silent. This is Mousehole's act of remembrance for the Penly lifeboat crew lost to the storm of 1981, a living memorial in darkness and quiet, as powerful as any monument of stone. The ritual binds the community, much as the Keigwin Arms once stood alone after the Spanish raid of 1595. The sole survivor among the ashes. In Mousehole the past is not only recalled but performed. Lanterns are checked and hung by hand, the Lights Committee's minutes are debated in the old parish room and families gathers on the quay just as fishermen once did, waiting for safe returns. The granite harbour, shaped by centuries of tides and toil, holds these stories in its very stones, each lamplit for those who came home, and each hour of darkness for those who did not. Fishing grit and communal care still anchor life here, giving Mousehole a rhythm that no storm, nor passing century has managed to erase. Third on our list, Leckich stands as a living experiment in how the past can be carefully curated for the present. Here, the story of photography itself begins at us. In 1835, William Henry Fox Talbot captured the world's first photographic negative at the lattice window of Laycock Abbey, fixing a fleeting moment on paper for all time. Today, a modern photographer still returns to that same window, camera poised, as if chasing the ghost of Talbot's original vision. The village is more than a backdrop. It is a place where each detail is protected by design. Since the National Trust acquired the estate in 1944, every street, stone and garden has been managed under a covenant that forbids overhead wires, satellite dishes, or incongruous signage. The effect is subtle but profound. Visitors walk lanes free from modern clutter. The sight lines unchanged from when Talbot's lens first opened. Even when film crews arrive, drawn by the promise of unspoiled England for productions from Pride and Prejudice to Harry Potter, their presence is strictly governed by trust agreements that require props and cables to vanish without a trace. Lack continuity is not an accident but a daily act of stewardship. The estate carpenter repairs walls with local limestone. The trust conservation officer inspects each facade and residence, except that even a new window pane must pass through layers of approval. In this village, the past is not only preserved, it is deliberately, quietly lived. Number 4. Polpiro reveals its secret. At the mouth of a tunnel, half hidden behind the whitewashed walls of a fisherman's cottage. Here, the daily rhythms of harbor life rest on older, shadowy foundations. Passages carved through slate and earth, linking kitchens and cellars directly to the quay. In 1749, a customs survey listed Polpero among Cornwall's most notorious contraband ports, and the records are plain. Seizures of brandy and silk, barrels spirited through the back ways while the tide was high and the lanterns dim. Harbor logs from 1765 tell of entire catches vanished overnight, the profits woven into the fabric of the village itself. Even now, the alleys remain car-free, their twists and turns mapped by centuries of necessity and subterfuge. At dawn, nets are still mended on the quayside, gulls wheeling above as if nothing has changed. Yet beneath the cobbles, the old tunnels remain. Silent witnesses to a time when survival meant outwitting the law as much as the sea. In Polpero the clandestine past is not just a memory but a living undercurrent, the same hands that once ferried barrels now haul in pilchards, and the village endures, shaped by the economies that once ran beneath its feet. Number 5. Broadway offers a gentle pause where the old Cotswold landscape meets a legacy of both trade and art. The village's wide high street, lined with honeyed stone houses, still carries echoes of the medieval wool market first noted in the Domesday Book, when sheep and merchants made Broadway a hub of rural prosperity. In the heart of the village stands the Lagon Arms, its guest book stretching back to 1377. That threshold was crossed by both Charles I and Oliver Cromwell, silent witnesses to the inn's shifting allegiances during the Civil War. Yet Broadway's story did not end with wool. In the 1880s, artists and writers found their way here, drawn by the same soft light that once gilded the fleece. The Broadway Colony, a gathering of painters and poets, turned the village into a living canvas, their works later exhibited at the Royal Academy, and bringing new eyes to the quiet lanes. Today the Market Green hosts local festivals. The rhythm of daily life, shopkeepers opening shutters and a painter setting up an easel remains much as it was. Broadway endures, not just as a relic, but as a place where both commerce and creativity have sheltered the village. Form, allowing each era to leave its mark without erasing what came before. Number 6, Clavely greets the day with the slow, steady rhythm of donkey hooves striking cobbles, a sound as old as the village itself. Here, the main street plunges 400 feet from clifftop to harbor, its gradient so steep that motor vehicles are forbidden by covenant, or rule inked into the estate deed in the 1730s and enforced ever since. Instead, the donkeys and their wooden sledges take on the work of postmen and porters, making their rounds each morning at 10, delivering groceries, firewood, and the day's letters to doorsteps perched on impossible angles. The village belongs to a single private estate, the Hanlon family, whose stewardship has kept Clavely's appearance remarkably unchanged. Every facade, every slate roof, is maintained under the eye of the estate steward, and tenants agree to live within these bounds. No satellite dishes, no new signage, no tarmac driveways. Mobile signals fade out as you descend, replaced by the briny air and the chatter of gulls. For visitors, the climb is a gentle challenge. For residents, it is simply life measured out in footsteps and the patient progress of donkeys. In Clovelly, the present is shaped by the past and the only engines allowed are the ones beating in your chest as you walk. Number 7. Robin Hood Bay greets the dawn with the patient hands of a child sifting through shingle searching for the spiral imprint of an ammonite curled and perfect pressed into stone for 160 million years. Here the Jurassic cliffs shed their secrets at every low tide, scattering the beach with fossils that once swam in ancient seas. But the stones of Robin Hood's Bay hold more than the memory of vanished creatures. Winding above the shore, the village forms a tight-knit maze of alleys and steep awamp. Their paths mapped as much by necessity as by design. In 1739, customs officers descended on this labyrinth, uncovering hidden tunnels beneath the inns and cottages and seizing over 1,000 gallons of contraband spirits stashed in cellars that still echo with the sound of bootsteps and whispered warnings. The old Coast Guard station now keeps a map of these subterranean routes, a silent witness to the days when survival depended on what could be spirited ashore by night. Today the bay marks the end of Wainwright's coast-to-coast walk, a 190-mile journey that draws weary walkers to the water's edge, where a small plaque on the harbor wall quietly proclaims their arrival. In Robin Hood's Bay, the fossil and the footpath, the smuggler's tunnels and the crashing tide all intersect, reminding anyone who lingers that the past, like the tide, is never far. Beneath the surface. 8th place. Portmeirion welcomes the morning with the slow toll of the Campanile bell. Its sound drifting over pastel domes and winding terraces that seem to belong to a dream more than a map of Wales. This village, unlike its ancient neighbors, is the product of a single vision, Sir Clough Williams-Ellis' 50-year experiment in proving that development could be beautiful. Beginning in 1925, Williams-Ellis set out to craft a place where architecture, landscape, and whimsy might coexist without erasing the wildness of the Dwyryd estuary. He salvaged fragments from demolished mansions, set Mediterranean piazzas beside lush Welsh woodland, and raised the Campanile as both landmark and invitation. His guiding belief, that development can be beautiful, is written in every painted arch and sunlit arcade. By the time the final Moorish arches were set in 1975, Portmeirion had become a living collage, part Italian fantasy, part Welsh earth. Its invented timelessness drew the cameras of The Prisoner in 1966 and 1967, with the surreal series using the village's every curve and colonnade as the set for its strange, enduring story. Today, visitors wander the same paths, sometimes pausing beneath the bell tower to imagine themselves in another world. Portmeirion reminds us that Old Britain is not always an accident of history, sometimes it is the result of a dream built to endure. Staithes begins its day with the dusting of a modest brass plaque above the old grocer's shop, a marker for the years when a teenage cook counted out salt fish and watched the horizon from behind the counter. Between 1746 and 1748, Cook clerked here, his first taste of life at the edge of the known world, before the sea called him onward to chart distant continents. The rhythm of the harbor has changed little since then. Each morning, nets are hauled and crab pots are lifted from the tide. Their catch measured against the same wooden crates. 40 tons of crab pass through these hands each year. A steady yield from waters Cook once gazed upon. Yet Staithes is not only a village of fishermen and explorers. At the turn of the 20th century the Staithes group of painters arrived, drawn by the singular northern light that pools in the harbor at dusk. Their canvases, exhibited at the Royal Academy in 1901, carried the colours of Staithes to London, turning the village into a quiet epicenter of British Impressionism. Today, a painter's easel still stands on the quay as the boats return, the past echoing in each brushstroke and every bell that chimes from the church above. Staithes endures as a place where world horizons begin small and where the ordinary lives of grocers, artists, and fishermen ripple far beyond the breakwater. In the 10th place, Falkland greets the morning with the soft echo of a falconer's glove brushing against ancient stone. Or the thud of a tennis ball on a court where royalty once played. At the heart of the village stands Falkland Palace, a Renaissance retreat whose real tennis court, built in 1539, is still in use. Its chalk lines and wooden rackets unchanged since Mary, Queen of Scots, hunted and played here in the 1560s. The lanes that wind from the palace gates are anchored by a charter granted in 1590. When the Register of the Great Seal of Scotland confirmed Falkland's rights as a royal burgh, drawing weekly markets and a bustle now softened by time. Yet the village's survival owes as much to legal stewardship as to royal patronage. In 1970, Falkland became the first designated conservation area in Scotland, a status that shields its harled cottages and slate roofs from unsympathetic change. 5 council heritage officers still walk these streets each year, checking that every repair matches the old materials, every satellite dish is tucked out of sight. Here, the past is not only preserved in stone, but in the deliberate choices that hold the present close to its origins, a place where the game, the glove, and the law all conspire to keep old Scotland alive. Dear Tough. Number 11. Crovey clings to the Aberdeenshire coast in a single, stubborn line. 30 granite cottages pressed so close to the sea that there is no room for a road, only a narrow path and the steady patience of a wheelbarrow. Supplies arrive not by car but by handcart, trundled along the stone ledge as they have been since the village's founding in 1790. Each morning a resident might be seen balancing a sack of coal or a week's groceries. The barrow's iron will tracing the same grooves worn by generations before. This routine is not a quirk, but a necessity, shaped by the landscape and sealed by history. On the night of the 28th of January, 1953, a storm roared in from the North Sea, tearing away the fishing fleet and swallowing part of the shoreline. The village lost its boats, but not its form. The houses stood firm, rebuilt where they could, never yielding to the temptation of tarmac or easy access. Today, Crovey endures as a place pared to essentials, no shops, no traffic, only the rhythm of the tide and the quiet resilience of those who choose to stay. Here, austerity is not absence but a kind of preservation. The past lives on, not because it is celebrated, but because it is simply stubbornly lived. Number 12. Landbride offers a final hush where the River Lossy moves so quietly beneath its 13th-century stone bridge that even the air seems to pause. Each morning the footbridge collects a soft print of footsteps, just a handful. Never more. While the river's gentle sound carries under arches first recorded in Doomsday as Sclota. The village's name, drawn from the Old English for muddy place, hints at a past shaped by water and time rather than drama. On the edge of the green, the old mill still turns, its wool grinding flour for the tea room, where scones are served beside the same window that once watched wool carts. Trundle by. A dead-end lane keeps through traffic at bay, leaving only the rhythm of water and the occasional clink of a teacup to fill the space. Here, stillness is its own form of heritage, a quiet that holds the memory of centuries, as if the village itself is content to rest, unhurried, in the slow turning of the river and the enduring comfort of stone. Across all 12 villages, one pattern endures. Continuity is a deliberate act. Here, past and present are entwined, not as museum pieces, but as lived-in rituals, stubborn traditions, and familiar faces along ancient lanes. These places remind us that old Britain isn't lost. It's quietly defended, day after day, in the gentle decision to let what already exists remain enough. Which village felt most timeless to you? Share your thoughts below.